Hi, welcome to my video. I'd like to teach you how to graft two pieces of stocking stitch together using Kitchener stitch. Now I have my two swatches there and I've already cut the yarn from the first one, and the length of the yarn is roughly 4 times the width of the piece that I want to graft. So I take a blunt pointed tapestry needle or wool sewing needle and thread my yarn through the eye. So there I have it ready. Now on the front needle I have all knit stitches facing. On the back needle all the purl stitches are facing me. I hold the two needles parallel. I first look at the first stitches on each needle, and subsequently I treat the stitches in pairs. Now, before a stitch can be slipped off the needles, it has to be locked. A knit stitch is locked purlwise, so I go into it as if to purl and pull the yarn through. That locks the first stitch on the front needle. I go to the first stitch on the back needle. It's a purl stitch, and purl stitches are locked knitwise, so I go into it as if to knit and pull the yarn through. Now I can treat these two stitches as a pair and those two together as a pair. The first knit stitch on the front needles is slipped off as if to knit. So I go in as if to knit and pull the yarn through and then just slip that one off the needles. Then I go to the next stitch and lock it. It's a knit stitch, so I lock it purlwise. I go to the first pair on the back needles. They purl stitches, so I can slip the first stitch as if to purl. I go in as if to purl, pull the yarn through and slip it off the needles, and then I lock the next purl stitch as if to knit. Go into it as if to knit, pull the yarn through. At first the yarn is all loose. I can correct it later. Every 3 or 4 pairs of stitches I can correct it. It really is quite simple. I look at a first knit stitch. If it's been locked, which this one has, then I can slip it. I slip it knitwise. The next knit stitch is locked purlwise. These two purl stitches, the first one's been locked, so I can slip it off the needles by going in purlwise, and then I lock the next one by going in as if to knit. So this is taking shape. If I have one loose stitch at the beginning of the row anyway, but you can see it all taking shape quite neatly. Let's continue a few more stitches along the row. Slip, lock, slip, lock. So those two have been locked. I go to the front needle again. I slip the first knit stitch off as if to knit, and I lock the next purl stitch, the next knit stitch purlwise. I go to the next 2 stitches on the back needle, slip the first stitch as if to purl, and go in as if to knit in order to lock the next stitch. Knitwise, slip it off, purlwise, lock it, purlwise, slip it off, knitwise, lock it. Go in as if to knit, slip it off the needles, lock it as if to purl, slip the back one as if to purl, lock the back one as if to knit. I'm tugging at my work. If you look at the stitches that you've done, you can give them a bit of a tug, and there you'll see perfect grafting. I've reached the last 2 pairs of stitches on each needle, so I continue in the same manner. I slip the first stitch knitwise. Now, for some reason I don't actually have quite enough wool. Then I lock the last stitch purlwise on the front needle. I go to the back needle and slip the first stitch purlwise and lock the last stitch knitwise on the back needle. Then I have 2 stitches left and they've both been locked, so I can slip them. Slip the front one knitwise, slip the back one purlwise. Now, apart from adjusting the tension of the stitches slightly by pulling them where they're uneven, I do have a perfect row of knitting grafted between the 2 swatch pieces.